Welcome to the Rachel and Cassandra Show. Before we begin, our disclaimer. These bitches sound like they're giving legal and financial advice, but I promise you they're not.
Hi, everybody. I hope I'm looking at the right camera. Thank you for joining us for the Rachel and Cassandra Show.
No,
we are
over there.
That one?
Yes.
Okay, I'm impressed that you can tell. So they rearranged the whole studio, and it's awesome and discombobulating, which is perfect because we have, can I call you a discombobulating guest?
Sure.
Okay. One of my newest friends, and I feel like I should always unpack how I know you, but we're both in real estate.
Yes.
But more importantly, and super interestingly and impressively, you are running for state senate in the 22nd District of Michigan, Jordan Genso. Genso with a G.
Yes.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have to say it's not that impressive to run, but thank you.
Okay. Well, for normies like us, it seems very impressive.
Yeah, I wrote myself in as a candidate where there was nobody on the ballot about a week ago. So that's the closest I'm going to get to being on the ballot.
Well, there you go. And I'm sure you won or will win.
I don't know what I'm running for. If one more person votes for me, I think I might be fucked and end up on a ballot somewhere for real.
Dude, why didn't you run a little campaign in your neighborhood? Julie would have voted for you.
I don't even know what I wrote myself in for. Anyway, today we're going to talk about politics, which we try to avoid.
We're going to do our first attempt at gotcha journalism.
And I'm here for it. That's what I'm here for.
That's all right. Good. So, Cassandra, do you want to start?
I don't. There's a lot of pressure, and I feel like I'm going to ask the wrong question for the gotchaness.
Do you want me to start out?
Tell us why you're running.
Do you want me to explain what the district is, or the position, or any of that?
We have so much to unpack.
Okay.
Yes, and I want to know about redistricting because nobody knows what district they're in, and it's always fucking different. And they just went through this whole
Every 10 years, it changes.
Oh, see, I didn't even know that.
And so
it has to do with the census. Is that right?
Yes. Every 10 years, you do the census. When the new census numbers come out, you have to redraw the districts because the intended purpose of having the census and districts is so that way, in theory, each district has roughly the same number of people in it. So that way you have, one person, one vote being represented in Lansing. That's why redistricting occurs.
Spirit of redistricting, but there's this thing
talk
called
about
gerrymandering. Hey, get out of my head.
So
you get a district that's shaped like a freaking crazy, I don't know, what's a crazy looking shape, everybody? Looks like that.
Looks like a cartoon character with multiple limbs. And So I have a history with gerrymandering, and I am wildly opposed to it. And coincidentally, it actually has a factor in my current race because the incumbent that I'm going against, Lana Tice, her and I, coincidentally, 11 years ago, she was the chair of the Livingston County Republicans, and I was the chair of the Livingston County Democrats.
Okay.
And when you do redistricting at the county level, so you have a county government with county commission districts that, just like at the state level, they have to get redrawn every 10 years. There's a 5-person panel, and 2 of those 5 people are the chairs of the Republicans and the Democrats.
I have to ask a question.
Yes.
Is that still true?
Yes.
Didn't they change some districting, not panel, but...
Yes, they did at the state level.
Okay.
What passed in 2018 to revise how redistricting is done at the state level did not have any impact at all on redistricting at the county commission level.
Gotcha.
And so last year, it was, again, the 5-person panel redrawing the county commission districts.
So this 22nd district
that was redrawn by the new redistricting committee that was neutral. And I think they did actually a pretty, successful job of creating districts that are legitimate. And especially at the 22nd. Okay. So to get back to what is the 22nd district? It's all of Livingston County plus some of the townships just west into Ingham County. There's 3 townships on the eastern border there. And then it goes north into Shiawassee County, there's a couple townships. Into Genesee County, a couple townships, and then Holly Township in northwest Oakland.
That's pretty much the real estate geography that I cover, plus a little bit of Washtenaw.
Yeah, there you go. And it's the largest district I've ever run in. I mean, it's because it's an entire county plus. But yeah, so, and it's not a gerrymandered district at all. It's a very Republican district, but that's just because however you draw even a neutral map in this area is going to be.
11 years ago, what happened?
Oh, so Lana and I are on this committee to redraw the county commission districts. And I was 25, 26 at the time, a naive young person who thought, hey, we've been given instructions on how to draw maps and minimize the population variance and keep townships whole and all this stuff. It's like, okay, I'm just going to draw the map that best meets these guidelines and not care one whit about what the political consequences are. Because I know no matter what map I draw, Republicans are still going to have an edge in all the 9 county commission districts. So let's just draw the best map. And so I do that and I put it forward thinking, yeah, everybody else on the committee is going to recognize this is, and the Republicans should be okay with it because it doesn't hurt them. It's just a neutral, legitimate map. Lana had submitted this very gerrymandered map for the county commission. And there is a YouTube video out there of the conversation that ensued when they started to push this through. And it's like, I don't understand. You guys are saying, you care about the population variance and the number of breaks. Why, if so, this other map is clearly better. Why would you? And Lana just kind of sits there like a deer in headlights, having no response whatsoever. And it's just a very blatant form of gerrymandering occurring in real time on video that anybody who Googles the Livingston County reapportionment 2011 on YouTube, they'd be able to see that video. And it's...
What is it?
2011 Livingston County reapportionment.
So, hold on. Reapportionment.
Yeah, that's
All right.
That's the other word for redistricting.
Yep. I just had to walk myself through spelling it. As someone with zero experience in district drawing.
Yeah.
With the dissolution of physical barriers to doing things that come with technology, why don't we just put everybody's name in a hat and just draw 15, shake it up really good, and take out X number of names, District 1, X number of names, District 2.
Like for the voters?
To make the districts, yeah. It doesn't have to be drawn on a map, does it?
Yeah. So district boundaries do have to be contiguous.
It's analog technology.
And so it does have to be geography based. I'm the type, though, when the Voters Not Politicians group came forward for their 2018.
Is that a real group or is that a...
No, that was legitimately a grassroots group that came forward to try to get the redistricting committee.
Aren't most grassroots groups lies that are actually political groups with grassroots names? So you have multi-layer funding.
Ooh.
You have grassroots groups coming from the left or the right, typically. This was one that my understanding of the history and the roots of it were that just a single lady had posted something and just got people kind of on board with it. And yeah, did the Democratic Party then get involved in supporting what their ballot proposal was, their amendment? Absolutely. You have the political groups that then latch on to what's being pushed, but as to whether or not it actually germinated from the party rather than at a local, just individual just trying to do what she thought was right. Does life
begin at inception, or is this
chicken
a conversation?
Chicken egg.
Yes. Yeah. And so, that ballot amendment, I tried to get involved early on, and I actually had some criticisms of what they were putting forward because they talked about communities of interest, which to me was just a backdoor way of still allowing for gerrymandering. I'm the type that I think a computer model can simply, if you give it the parameters, you want to minimize population variance and keep as many municipalities, townships, counties whole as possible and not split them into multiple districts. A computer can do that. You just put that into a computer. It will draw that for you. And because that's effectively what I did in 2011. I just did it manually rather than with, doing an algorithm. And yeah, that district then is fair. Now, you're going to get districts that are wildly Republican or wildly Democratic, but that's just the natural consequence of a neutrally drawn. It's not drawn for that outcome. It's just drawn neutrally, and that's the
Absolutely.
outcome.
People in a certain area start to hold common beliefs and work toward common outcomes, which starts to look like a political party. And then you find everybody in Livingston County is mostly a Republican, just hypothetically.
Yeah.
So what were you running for in 2011? Were you running for something?
I was county chair.
Okay.
Chair of the county party. You have county parties, and you have.
So back to Cassandra's question. No.
Oh, so Lana's map, the gerrymandered one won, and I mean, it was designed to protect the incumbents and also minimize the chance that there would be any Democratic county commission candidate who would have any sort of chance during those 10 years from 2012 through 2022.
I'm fucking shocked.
New districts.
So I feel like
I don't know, Lana. Everybody it feels like the majority of people who are in politics would do that to save their job and, I don't know, kick the ladder off once they got up it. So nobody else could climb.
Have to say out loud that Lana is a friend of mine, and it's Lana, not Lana. Just for the record, unless I'm wrong, and I'm sure she'll let me know.
I always assumed it was Lana.
Right. Yeah. I have to get that out there because I'm not here to like pick on her or any specific candidate.
Yeah.
But the gerrymandering conversation is an interesting one. It's one of the few things I remember from social studies, right?
Yeah.
7th grade.
I had no knowledge of it really prior to 2011. I mean, I knew of, in theory. That's why I was so surprised when it occurred in 2011 and I witnessed it firsthand.
Can I ask, so in my perception, I could be wrong, why are Republicans better at gerrymandering than Democrats?
Oh, that's easy. It's because, in general, the more densely populated an area is, the more Democratic it typically leans. So even in Livingston County, the city of Brighton and the city of Howell, those two cities, a little bit more densely populated and also a little bit more purple. So when you have just the populations naturally grouped that way, where the Republicans are dispersed and the Democrats are consolidated, then it's an opportunity for Republicans to do what's called packing and cracking, where they put as many Democrats in one geography district as possible. So it's like 90% Democratic, 10% Republican. And then all the other districts can then easily be like a 60-40 Republican Democratic split. That's just a consequence of the tendency for Democrats to live closer together. It's easier to then group all of those votes in one district. So that way then, if you have a countywide that's about, 45-55, you can end up with a county commission that is literally all one party.
And then you, at the state level, end up with X number of districts where more districts are Republican leaning or voting than Democratic.
Statewide, the state House candidates or the state Senate, I think the Democrats all through the 2010s won a majority of the votes for those, legislative races statewide, but they never were in the majority.
Put all the names in a hat, shake it really hard, and just start dumping them out. Count them.
Yeah, I mean, that's similar to what they have like in Canada and all that with, it's a parliamentary system type where you're not, I believe that's like a parliamentary based, which is just a fundamental change to our system. Would I be in favor of it? In theory. But
to be clear, I'm not seriously proposing this as a real solution. Like all things, there's a grain of goodness in the idea that probably comes with a bunch of dumb bullshit that creates a whole new set of problems. So I get that. I'm just, pointing out the bizarre outcome of a geographic constraint for picking how people are grouped together.
Yeah.
So Cassandra's original question.
Yes.
Why are you running?
I don't remember what it is. Oh yeah, there we go.
That's why I take notes.
Let me give my little bit of a stump speech. It's when I look around, I view our current political environment as just very depressing, so divisive, and it's just exhausting. It's infected every aspect of our lives in many ways. And nobody, I know at least, is really happy that we're doing this, that, this is our politics. You go around and you just see people going at each other. I think a lot of it is because whether it's the media or the political campaigns, so much is focused on fear, hatred, and anger of the other side. So Yeah, and I mean, not to sound like Yoda, but I'm literally taking
I
this
love
from Yoda.
sounding like Yoda. Do it.
Fear.
You gotta do the voice. Do the voice if you're gonna do
that.
A Yoda.
I cannot do. But fear leads to anger, which leads to hate, right. And that's the path to the dark side. And that is when you consume media, social media, and even the mainstream. It's all about those three emotional responses. That's what gets people hooked, and it's just a path to the dark side.
Kid Rock said it best. You get what you put in.
Okay.
If you're consuming all of this negativity, then
yes.
you end up on the dark side.
So what I'm looking to do with my campaign is offer an alternative that is a different path. It's communication, engagement, just sitting down with people who I disagree with and having a real face-to-face conversation, getting out from behind the keyboard and actually talking like we're doing, like real people, because those conversations are much less likely where you're going to be talking past each other, to an audience and trying to just, say what, your monologue to whatever people you think are watching. Instead, you're going to be communicating to and having that, back and forth, point, counterpoint that's healthy, that is also designed to better understand. Its communication leads to understanding, which leads to peace, where, if I better understand your position, even if I don't agree with the conclusion, if I understand how you got there, I'm going to be more at peace with, whatever outcome occurs. If we live in a democracy where, if your side then is what's deciding things, I can at least find some peace in it, knowing why, understanding the mindset. Right now, I think those on the conservative side, I don't think they actually understand why I hold the positions that I hold. I know I don't really understand why they hold some of the positions they hold. And that inability to understand is going to continue if we don't actually talk to each other and engage. And so that is really the crux of my campaign, is just trying to show people that you can do politics a different way. You don't need to focus on fear, anger, and hatred. You can seek, engagement and understanding. And then, I don't expect a majority of the voters in the district to vote for me just because I know my policies are not the policies that they're likely to want to support, in Lansing.
Hold on.
Why don't you try to fear them into voting for you?
Hold on. I want to know what your policies are.
Yeah.
But I also want to restate, like, as you were talking earlier, it seems like what we see out in the marketplace, if you will, is a lot of arguing, browbeating, and yelling at each other versus actual communicating.
Yeah.
What occurred to me while you were talking, though, in order for communication to actually occur, you have to have a desire on the part of the listener to have an empathetic position with who they're talking to, which is hard to do when you're mad and feeling attacked, which is the strategy, the most common strategy. Yeah?
There's two things that are required, in my opinion: empathy and curiosity.
And a willing suspension of belief in your. Let's both talk at the same time. 1, 2, 3, go.
There was a pause, so I didn't know we were both talking at the same time.
I know.
I'll shut up.
No, you go. Oh, don't take off your headset.
No, it's fine. I said, but it has to be on both sides. It has to be. I mean, I can be as understanding and listening and empathetic as I want, but if the other person doesn't give a fuck, like, what's the point?
Right. I forgot what I said.
No, and okay, so with empathy. Yeah, and you were also saying that, a willing suspension
of conviction in your own point of view.
Yes.
Like, you have to be willing to set aside that you're 100% right, that there may be information you don't know, there may be a valid point of view that's different from your own, in order to create space to hear what someone else is experiencing or has as their opinion.
And that's exactly why I'm seeking that engagement with others, because I want to give any voter in the district the opportunity to scrutinize me and my positions in a public forum to show people, okay, can I actually, do my positions hold up to scrutiny?
So what are your positions?
I have
curveball.
Gotcha.
There's a lot that
should we expand the Supreme Court? Wait, that's federal.
That's federal. I have positions on federal stuff, but I don't typically talk about that because
give us your top 5 favorite positions, because so far you've said policies and positions multiple times, and we have no idea what you're talking about.
Well, I mean, so one that's very relevant right now is, with the Dobbs decision overturning Roe versus Wade, that does now become a
abortion
state issue.
Let's go right
with
for
the
the
1931
jugular.
law, and obviously, I think we need to get rid of that law. Roe versus Wade.
So isn't it weird that there are specific prosecuting attorneys at the county level that have decided to enforce a 1931 law, and some have not decided to enforce it, even though it's currently suspended? Like, that's fucked up. Like, if I'm in Kent County, I'm going to be prosecuted, but if I go to Allegan County, I'm fine. Like, what the shit is that?
This is like mask, whatever they were. There weren't laws, but the mandates. And I know that what's his name? The police guy was like,
Sheriff Murphy?
Mike Murphy was like, I'm not going to do shit about that.
Right.
Because I don't like that one.
Right.
I actually agreed with him, just so that's out there, but it is
in
a weird,
my county,
it's weird.
It was absolutely enforced.
Yes. And that's still the case. There are restaurants in Ann Arbor that you can't go to without uploading your vaccine card.
Well, now I'm assuming that's the individual establishments deciding it and not, or is it a Washington County thing?
I don't know. I'm not political enough to know, to be really smart here.
It is always important to recognize if you are not satisfied with something, is it a government action or is it a private action?
Yes.
And so, because I mean that
for sure,
if it's a private action, not much we can do about it.
No shirt, no shoes, no service.
But
I could let you in barefoot into my store if I wanted to.
Right, but that's government action requiring shirts and shoes and So
abortion. Back to policy number 105.
Back to abortion. Let's go.
Well, you had mentioned it's strange where in some counties it's being enforced. The 1931 law is being enforced, in others it's not, and that I think gets to the crux of the Dobbs decision, where it's now being sent back to the state level, where in some states, it's not going to be allowed. In other states, it is. Me, just as a Democratic person in this country, I don't think that abortion can be a state level issue, because I think that is a clear violation of the 14th Amendment. When some states want to treat a fetus or an embryo or a zygote or fertilized egg in a petri dish as a person with rights, if the geography changes where you take that petri dish to another state, it cannot be that all of a sudden that thing that was a person in Alabama is no longer a person in Michigan. Like, we fought a civil war over the idea that you can't be considered a person somewhere and not in another state like that.
Didn't we already handle this with slavery and women's rights? And now here we are talking.
Did we though?
No, apparently not.
And so that's why that's my biggest criticism of the Dobbs decision, is that I don't see how it reconciles itself with the 14th Amendment. Yes.
What is the 14th Amendment?
That all persons born in the country or naturalized citizens. And that's where it says persons born. Yes,
born.
That they're citizens of America with equal rights, equal treatment under the law.
That's the word that needs to be defined.
Well, I mean,
one would hope, but apparently not.
And so, I mean, the 14th Amendment is about, equal treatment under the law. And it's why that the fun history of the 14th Amendment is that's what applied the Bill of Rights to the states. So prior to the 14th, you could have a state that totally banned the Second Amendment and no guns allowed in the state of Connecticut, let's say. But then the 14th Amendment comes along and says, no, the government has to provide equal treatment under the law. So a state can't violate your Bill of Rights, your first through 10 amendments in the Constitution, which had only applied to the federal level. Now it applies to the state level. So Connecticut can't ban all guns and get rid of the Second Amendment in their state. So the 14th Amendment totally changed our governmental system. And because of the concept and the fundamental principles behind it, when it comes to abortion, it really does have to be a federal level issue, policy. And I am very certain that is where the pro-life movement is going to take it. They're not going to be satisfied with just leaving it up to the states. They're going to latch on to the same concept of, okay, if you're a person here in Mississippi, you've got to be considered, women can't travel across state lines to get an abortion. that's where the fight is going.
Absolutely. And divide and conquer. Now you just tackle it one state at a time. A little bit of gerrymandering in this state. We got it to tip. Now we go to the next one. Gerrymander here. So you can see how that could be handled.
But
if you had an agenda.
We do have, I was a petitioner, so full disclosure, we have a petition that garnered more signatures than any petition in Michigan's history, more than weed somehow. So many billboards for weed. But to put this to a vote for the citizens to be on the November ballot. Yes?
Yeah, to change the state constitution to basically then override the 1931 law to make that moot. It's spectacular to see that garnered so many signatures and has so much support. Very hopeful that that's going to pass in November, and our state will be then one of the quote unquote good ones. Mm-hmm. But just the simple fact that, there's going to be other states that aren't. And I'm not comfortable with that being the environment in which we are, where, a pregnant woman in one state has different rights than a pregnant woman in another state. To
me, it's no different than saying like, oh, I can own property in Michigan, but I can't in Ohio because they don't see me as a person because I'm female.
Similar. Yeah.
So, anyway.
Yeah.
And so instead of making this the abortion episode, what's another?
And let me put a plug, because my campaign is about trying to sit down with people who disagree with me. I actually did a 45-minute video that's on my Facebook page, and it's on YouTube, of me sitting down with somebody who supported the Dodd's decision. And we had that back and forth. And so I gave him the opportunity to scrutinize me. I tried to understand his side a little bit better. Just if that's their issue, and that's what I'm trying to do with my campaign, is for whatever issue you happen to care about, I want to have content where you can then see an in-depth understanding of where I'm coming from, because I'm asking you to hire me for this position to go to Lansing and make laws. You should know very thoroughly where I stand on whatever issue matters to you. So
I agree.
I'm just putting that plug out there. But we can move on to another issue.
I want your top 5. Okay. So abortion. 1.
So let's go with education.
Education.
Our school system, it's not performing as well as it should. There's a lot of different attacks coming at it from various groups that want some radical changes that I don't think would be healthy, such as like vouchers. There's the education system.
Talk about Betsy DeVos.
Yes. Well, okay. So fun story about Betsy DeVos. And I was the board president of a charter school here locally in Brighton.
Which one?
Flex Tech.
Oh, yeah.
And my wife is now actually a teacher there. She teaches English at Flex Tech. But when I was board president I was on the board from like 2011.
You know what? Sorry. Yes. I was offered a board position at that school, and they declined me. And I'm a little butthurt about it.
Wow.
This was a couple of years ago.
Wow. Because
they offered it to you and then said
no? Yeah, they were considering me, and somebody was like, hey, we have a seat on this board. Are you interested? And I was like, you know what? I think I might be. And then somebody called me to vet me, and probably I dropped one too many F-bombs. And they were like, thank you for your interest. We'll let you know if we decide in the future that we have room for someone like you.
Wow. That's interesting. Because when I got on, I was like the 5th member, I believe. It was still a newer school, so they hadn't even filled out their entire board yet. I was the last one to fill it out. And so, I served for a couple of years just as a trustee, and you get appointed. It's Central Michigan that makes the decision as to whether or not you get to serve on that board.
Okay.
They're the charter authorizer. But then, I become the board president. And in 2017, March of 2017, I'm at this event in Lansing where charter schools are teaching charter school board members how to be good advocates and lobby on behalf of charter schools when talking to their elected officials. So this is an event being put on by the charter school lobbyists, basically, to teach us, me as a board president and a bunch of others. But it's also the same time that Betsy DeVos was nominated to be Secretary of Education, and her nomination, hearings are going on. So I'm at this event, and they're giving us all the talking points as to why, we should be encouraging our legislative representatives and senators to support charter schools in Michigan. And I had brought up the concept of vouchers, and I was like, okay, so what's the best talking points to convince our legislators to be opposed to a voucher system, because we as charter schools should be opposed to vouchers.
Why?
Everybody in the room kind of took that same, like, what do you mean? Like, we're all in favor of vouchers. And it's like, no. Right now, the funding for public education, it's a pie, and it is divided amongst the traditional schools like Brighton High School and the charter schools. So they each get a slice of that pie of the public education dollars. And it works out to be a per pupil allowance.
Yeah, this is student count day.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, okay.
Yes. So what vouchers would do would allow, the parochial schools, just all the private schools, every other education entity to get a slice of the pie. It doesn't grow the pie. It just allows these other entities.
But it goes with the kid. So the parents get to pick where they want to put their kids.
Right. But what I'm saying is charter school advocates should not want, we have a competition-based education system in Michigan. That's why we have school of choice and all that. But at the same time, it's as though people want our traditional schools to be bad competitors, where, you wouldn't want
you
McDonald's.
You got to keep the workers dumb so that they'll keep working.
But it's like, okay, if McDonald's gets to decide whether or not Burger King is going to, get a grant from the government to open up a store.
I'm not tracking this. Okay. What's wrong with vouchers? If I want to send my kid to St. Pat's, I think my money that I pay into my tax dollars should follow them to St. Pat's.
Okay. So, there's the issue.
Hold on. What? I missed what you were saying. Say it again.
Isn't there a separation of church and state? You're paying tax dollars, and that's public education, but you can't use it for.
But I'm not. But it's attached. School. Hold on. It's attached to my kid, and when my kid stops going to school, and there are plenty of people without kids that pay those tax dollars, and it goes to education. I'm just saying, as a parent, if I want to send my kid to St. Pat's, I think the money should go with them.
And that discussion about vouchers.
If I want to send them to devil school in like the Witchcraft Academy, I should be able to do that too.
Yeah, or Hogwarts. Yes.
Hogwarts. Yes.
And from a parental advocacy side, that is an argument. Absolutely. But the reason I'm bringing up this example is because we were supposed to be being taught how to be good advocates for charter schools.
Yeah.
Charter schools should not want.
Why?
Because that cuts into the pie with other entities. And
but
so it decreases.
But the pie is divvied up on a per student basis. So you got to earn the students to get the money.
You're increasing the denominator. So now all those students who are going to Hogwarts, they're now getting added to the denominator. So the per pupil funding decreases. So charter schools see less funding per student.
Why? Because we're adding back in the students that aren't even going to public school?
Yes. So the students that those tax dollars don't follow because they're going to private school, How big of a number is that really though? I mean, it's big enough to make a substantial impact on school budgets. As a percentage,
not that I would expect you to come with armed with stats.
I would expect, let's say 10%.
Okay.
So if you take the per pupil funding allowance and decrease it by 10%, I mean, that's, hundreds of dollars per student that, can be for a school so harmful because these schools are already strapped for funds. It's not like we overinvest in our education system.
Yeah, but I mean, are they poor? I don't know. This is becoming now the education episode.
Well, no, but that's good. If we have a disagreement, we should be able
11% of students in Michigan are in private schools.
Yes.
That was very well educated guesses. So let's set the 11% that are in private school aside.
Yes.
What is the purpose of a charter school?
I love this. Okay. So do you know what a charter school is?
Yes, I went to Central Michigan University and my daughter went to Cheryl Stockwell.
Okay. So you have three entities involved with a charter school. You have the charter authorizer, like Central Michigan. Mm-hmm. You have the charter school itself. And then most charter schools hire a management company. So it's
like an HOA.
Yeah. Yeah, basically. Yes. You have the HOA board that hires an outside management company. And that management company is for profit, but the HOA itself is not. Yeah. So the charter school is not a for-profit entity. The reason charter schools exist, in my opinion, the reason I am an advocate for the existence of charter schools is that they have a nimbleness to them. They can do things that the traditional schools are not doing. So the analogy I often use is, if the traditional schools are Coca-Cola, I am not a fan of charter schools coming along trying to be Pepsi, because I want the traditional schools to be the best option for 80% of the population. But I know that students are not homogenous. They don't all learn the same way. They aren't all going to fit that traditional model of education. Right. So I want there to be alternatives for those students that don't view the traditional schools as the best option for them. So if they're Coca-Cola, I don't want a charter school offering Pepsi, but if they're offering, Sprite or something without caffeine, like just something that it distinguishes it.
But why are we drawing the line at charter schools only? Why can't the other private schools?
Okay, so that's a different conversation.
We got sparkly water. Yes. We got Yoo-hoo. We've got Ovaltine.
Yoo-hoo.
The 50s. I know. Don't know.
The question when it comes to private schools or religious schools is the content at the school. Do you want the government being able to tell those schools what they should be teaching?
If they should just hand over the money and let the school do what it's doing.
So if a school is teaching that the Earth is 6,000.
Flat. Let's do flat Earth theory.
Flat Earth theory. I was going to say 6,000-year-old theory.
Flat.
Okay, flat Earth theory. If a school is teaching that, should tax dollars go towards that, or should we as a society decide, okay, no, we have if our tax dollars are going towards it, the school can't be teaching.
Listen, I'm fundamental, libertarian leaning, and yes. I think if people want to send their kids to a school that says that the Earth is flat, fucking knock yourself out. Okay. None of my business.
So then that really does get to then the separation of church and state, and whether or not you want your tax dollars going to religious institutions that are teaching things that do not actually abide by the educational experts who've developed curricula.
Rachel.
And I'm just a pot stirrer by nature.
No, yeah, that's...
Yes, Cassandra.
Can I just say, so if you invert it and I take my voucher money and I send my kid to a devil school,
yes,
the religious community would be up in arms that I'm taking public tax dollars to teach children that abortion is the only way to go and you should never have babies and you should worship the fucking devil, right? And that climate change is real or whatever. So if you just flip it on its axis a little bit, I think that's the argument.
But I think if the religious schools were getting money too, they would shut the fuck up about it. I really do.
But they would still continue to teach religion and those other things that we as a society have deemed need to be separated. Like the whole reason for the founding of the country. Correct.
Well, then let's go back to the church. Let's go back to the abortion conversation. If we really
I don't think he's gone through all of his things.
I know. Stay on topic.
Because it's difficult to get to the five. Because within education itself, you have.
So I'll stop
all of the culture war fights.
I'm gonna hold on. Yes. I want to stop stopping you and finish the voucher bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Education is important because you were talking about being on the board at Flex Tech.
Yes.
And talking about why a charter school advocate would be opposed to vouchers because
it's harmful to charter schools because it decreases the per pupil funding. So charters, anybody who's currently got a slice of the pie should not want others to start getting slices and decreasing their share.
Kick the ladder.
I was thinking that too. Close the door behind you.
It's a justified reason because charter schools and traditional schools are
all reasons are justified. Hard stop.
Okay.
So I would propose that from putting on your financial money only glasses as a charter school advocate, you may take the position that if you dilute the per pupil funding and you can't increase the number of pupils you have because you have less money, it's a spiral into non-existence.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And we don't, if our schools were flush with cash and we just, we invested so much in them that they could take a 10% hit by, allowing other schools to get the funds. That would be a slightly different, it doesn't change the fundamental reasons behind why you shouldn't.
So we should
but
all
it would change the consequences.
Play the lotto, because the Michigan Lotto supports our schools.
We can't even afford Kleenex for the classrooms. I mean, paper,
and that
pencil.
whole lotto scam is a fucking scam.
Yes.
Like the money's there, and if you play the lotto, they just move it and replace it with the lotto money. It doesn't fund our schools. It's a look ball, fine ball.
It funds the roads. Wait, no.
Yeah. Anyway, okay. So abortion, done. Education, done.
Okay.
Number 3.
I mean, education isn't done because it's a whole umbrella of issues. I mean, you have those out there that have been complaining about CRT and
what does that mean?
So critical race theory.
Oh, yes.
Which, now what that means, and it's why these discussions that attach a label, 2 different people who hear the label have wildly different understandings.
Emotional reactions to what they think they know without knowing what critical race theory really is.
You see stories of, parents saying that this is CRT. And I look at it, I'm like, that's not CRT at all. But okay, I mean, clearly there's a different understanding. But if you then just use that label as a shortcut to rile up the division,
it's like a diagnosis.
It's that darkness that I don't enjoy.
Arguing, browbeating, yelling.
Yes.
Rather than communicating.
Wow.
Say it. No, you can't do that. We're recording. You have to tell us.
Okay. I have a really general opinion. I vote Democratic, generally speaking. I have an observation that the Democrats are absolutely fucking horrible at getting a message across, at uniting, at motivating people. And the Republicans are really good. And I think one of the reasons is they stir up shit and they kick up a hornet's nest and get people all worked up. And the Democrats are all like super nice. Like, well, we couldn't expand the Supreme Court. And the Democrats would do it in a fucking heartbeat. They'd be like, get together, do it. Like, it's just a total difference, I think, in how people are built.
I have to say something back to you to make sure I understand. You mean the Republicans would just do it?
She flipped it.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Okay, you said the other word, and I just want to make sure I'm not muddying the waters in my brain.
And I have a story about this. 2018 election night, that's when we had those ballot proposals about gerrymandering, and just increasing access to the ballot box, no reason absentee voting, and marijuana. And so that evening I was at the bar, Cozy Inn, playing trivia. And the trivia host, I was talking with him and I asked him, like, did he vote today? And he's like, wanted to make sure.
Was it Kenny?
No, it was not Kenny.
No, shout out.
No, I used to host trivia for Kenny. I used to work for him. Okay. But no, it was one of his other people. And so a guy I didn't know, but I was just trying to feel him out. And, did you vote? And he's like, yeah, I had to vote for proposal 1. And it's like, great. And I hope then that you voted for the Democrats as well. And he's like, no. And he started going on about how, he just doesn't think it's right that for Halloween, you can't wear like the Black Panther. He started going off on culture stuff that is not policy related, but because of the policy or the culture fights that occur, he self-identifies then with the Republicans who are, on that side of the culture wars, and just doesn't see the connection that, okay, you voted for legalizing marijuana, but then you voted for people, the elected officials who are going to use their power to block marijuana wherever they can. And so here in the county, we don't, down in Pinckney, they finally have it. But the elected officials were able to then undermine what the voters passed. What he voted for, he then undermined by voting for Republicans, because a lot of voters, they look at the culture war battles as their identity. And then when they show up in the ballot box, that's what they're doing when they vote for Republicans or Democrats. But when it gets to the ballot issues, they recognize, oh yeah, of course, marijuana should be legalized. Of course, we should get rid of gerrymandering. Of course, no reason absentee voting. Like they vote for the same stuff as the Democrats.
When it's a line item proposal, but they have a Trump flag in their front yard. And you're like,
they don't identify with the Democrats because of the culture wars. Yeah.
Number 3.
Okay, let's go economy.
Gotcha.
And I mean, because with 2011, Rick Snyder becomes governor, Republicans control every aspect of our state government, the Supreme Court, the House, the Senate, the governors. They can literally do anything they want, and the Democrats cannot stop them because we don't have the filibuster in Lansing the way they do in DC. So the minority really can't stop what happens in Lansing if there's a majority that's all one party. What do? They push this narrative of shared sacrifice that was used as the basis for increasing taxes. And, it sounds right. Okay, yeah, the state needs more tax revenue. Let's all share in the sacrifice. But what they put forward is not shared sacrifice. It's targeted. And who did they target? They targeted seniors with a pension tax that had never existed. They targeted the middle class by cutting the homestead property tax credit. And then they cut the working families by cutting the earned income tax credit. So that's literally that 8-year stretch of Governor Snyder's terms. The Republicans could do anything they wanted.
Dude,
yes.
That's literally targeting the demographics most likely to band together to get through something. So that shared sacrifice message is like an organized manipulation of susceptible groups of people. Yeah. Okay.
Well, yeah. And why did they do it? They did it so they could eliminate the business taxes in Michigan. And their favorite thing to do is to cut the state income tax. Why? Because the state income tax is the only thing that is a actual level playing field where, in some ways it's progressive that, those at the top with their, money and their income, they're paying the same rate.
It's three-dimensional gerrymandering.
It's economic gerrymandering. Yeah. Okay.
I just mean it's not like a geographic plane.
Right. And so okay, in I want to say it was like 2017, they increased the gas tax. And this is the perfect example. They increased the gas tax so that way we're all paying more at the pump.
We're going to fix the roads.
Yes. What do they do with it? They also then included in that gas tax increase is a decrease to the state income tax. And again, why? Because every single change in economic policy that they made during those 8 years under Governor Snyder was designed to shift the tax burden off of the wealthy and businesses and onto everybody else. That is their entire agenda when it comes to economics. Shift the tax burden off the wealthy, put it onto everybody else every single time without exception. And it's one of those that I don't understand how
that started with Reagan, and now people think it's awful. Reagan was the fucking worst.
Yeah, it has been their MO for decades, but I'm just saying, we have a very recent 8-year stretch of witnessing it where I've asked them, just give me one exception where they actually went to wealthier people and asked them to pay more in taxes. Because I can point out so many examples of them asking everybody else to, but no, every single time it's about decreasing taxes on the wealthy and increasing it on everybody else.
Does that filter over into the insurance thing?
No.
Okay.
At least
I know that's not an economic policy directly, but it kind of is.
Yeah. Well, it's definitely
that was a disaster. That was handled horribly.
Yes, that is economic and consequential. But that is more. Instead of the wealthy, that's to benefit the insurance companies at the expense of everybody else.
Takes them off the hook.
Replace wealthy with powerful. Everything the Republicans do, every change they make is designed to help the powerful at the expense of everybody else. Whether it's, the...
Kick the ladder, as Cassandra has said.
Yes.
Okay.
And so that's where, with the auto insurance, that's Lana Tice. She was chair of that committee. That was her baby.
Yes.
And I've had conversations with insurance people that, they're opposed to it. Everybody is opposed to it except for those who actually own the insurance companies.
The insurance companies.
Well, the marketing was well done too. People, your regular people who don't really have the bandwidth, and nor should they have to pay attention to all of the politics behind freaking insurance, which is highway robbery as it is, right? Legalized extortion as a concept, but that's for another episode. Your average insurance carrier was like, yeah, my rates are high. Yeah, give me my $400.
Mm-hmm.
And that's an easy
Did
sell.
You keep yours? Can I just ask a question? Did you keep the policy limits for unlimited?
Not, okay. So it depends on which policies.
Like the auto. So you could have gotten the credit.
Yes, I understand, but I have multiple insurance policies. So in some cases, I kept it the way it was. And in other cases, I took the new way.
Okay.
And so, so that's one aspect of the economic policies. Right to work legislation that they passed, during the lame duck of, I think, 2014.
I forgot what lame duck means.
So lame duck is the period of time after the election before the newly elected people are sworn in. So okay. November, December. And lame duck is typically when they push through the things that they wanted, but they knew would be public, detrimental
they wouldn't get reelected
in the election.
For it.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, or maybe I think 2014, maybe I'm getting confused when right to work was passed. It may have been 2012, because 2014 is also the most egregious example. 2014 on the ballot is a ballot issue about the emergency managers, and statewide we voted to get rid of the emergency manager law.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yes. And so during the lame duck right after that, they repassed the law and attached a small money amount on it. By doing that, they made it immune from being rejected by the people again, because the voters only have the ability to, as a ballot measure, remove certain laws if they don't have the expenditures. So the voters reject this law, they pass it again during lame duck and add a money amount on it, so that way then it is forever, can't be overturned by the voters again. And that's when then they use that new law to install a emergency manager on Flint against the wishes of Flint, who then that emergency manager went contrary to the city council votes, and he forced the city onto a different water source, which then poisoned the city. And it's all because of that lame duck in 2014 and them passing that law that it's quite.
It makes me want to throw up. Like, my guts are getting in knots. It's fucking infuriating.
But that's where I don't want my campaign to be about that, because that's
I'm
the anger.
I'm going to argue.
Fear.
I want to browbeat about these topics and yell. I want to yell.
It's more because of these things. That's where I just want to understand, like, how does somebody actually think the emergency manager law was a good idea? Yes, these cities, municipalities are in financial disrepair because of the recession, decreasing property tax values. And so even when homes, start coming back up in price, your taxable value is constrained by
it's 2-year delay.
Oh, but even then, your
it's
SEV,
literally like a formula.
Yeah. The SEV is a 2-year delay. Go ahead.
It's really like looking at a $300,000 house and a single mom who lives in an apartment, but on a city level, right? Some are flush and they have money and they have a job, they have taxpayers, they have all the things. And then other ones are struggling to get by with what they have and using every single bit. And when, say, a breadwinner leaves, right, or somebody doesn't pay child support that month, boy, something's got to get cut like that, right?
Yeah.
And you're talking about using those as analogies for different cities?
Yeah, like Benton Harbor or Flint. Yes. Like they lost huge companies. Yeah, yes. And their revenue went down.
The breadwinner leaving being GM.
It doesn't mean they're not trying. It just means, yeah, exactly.
Yes, that's good. I like that.
And so, so the property values decrease. The SEV comes down. The taxable value comes down. 2 years, later, the SEV can come up whatever, but the taxable values are still constrained. Yep. So the tax revenue.
What episode was that? We had Trina in here talking about that.
I've actually watched that one.
Yeah, just talking about understanding that it's constrained by a formula.
Yes.
It's not real.
And so they're in hardship. Yeah. But then the idea that the state can just impose somebody who has such powers that no locally elected person could ever have.
We're going to send you a new mom, and she's going to tell you what to do, because you kids can't figure it out for yourselves.
And whether you want it or not or whatever. And it's like, okay.
Dictatorship.
I understand the need for somebody with extra power in that situation, but at a minimum, let the local people elect that person. Then if you're going to have an emergency manager, let it be a locally elected person rather than somebody sent from the state government, imposed against the will of the people who are being impacted.
So it's like a top-down monarchy.
Yeah. So the emergency manager, it's like one of those things where I don't understand how somebody could actually, what is the counter argument?
And that was a Republican move?
Oh, yeah, yeah. I mean, they had existed for long before that, but it was under Snyder that they revamped it and turned it into what then allowed for Flint to be poisoned. Yes.
So are we still on number 3, economy?
Sure. But no, let's move over actually to number 4, environment.
Okay, so the last one though, that goes in that category. We were just the city manager, economic manipulation, concepts, and okay. So number 4 was environment.
Yes.
Talk about that.
So, I mean, this is one where you have issues facing our state, whether it's PFAS. I'm not sure if you're familiar with, okay. So and the Great Lakes and just all the invasive species, that is one that we, over the long term, in the coming decades, I think our state is well poised to be less harmed by climate change than other areas of the nation. And
don't say that out loud. People will start moving here.
Well, and that's exactly what is likely to occur a couple decades from now.
I think it's already happening.
Yes.
I hear things.
And so there's also then going to be a lot of pressure on us to share our resources, like our Great Lakes, with other states. And it's one of I am really concerned. Okay, people down in Florida right now buying homes on the Gulf Coast or wherever. In 20 years, 30 years, are we as taxpayers going to have to bail them out when their house is under?
I vote yes. I say
we can
yes,
talk about flood insurance. Yes. They keep rebuilding. In Canada, you can't keep rebuilding a house when something like that happens. They go, you can't build there anymore, move somewhere else. But in the United States, they're like, build it again.
Put some
Harvey,
dirt there.
Katrina, all of it. Do it again.
Why should we be subsidizing them and their risky behavior?
We shouldn't.
I don't want to bail them out.
So these are slippery. So pot stirrer here.
Yes.
So why would I have to pay for somebody who's a heroin junkie to go to the hospital? Why would I subsidize their risky behavior?
In what way are you subsidizing it?
Like you can go to I don't know. But I presume that I am because my medical bills are so high.
Well, okay.
And I'm sure I'm absorbing the unpaid medical bills from the heroin junkies.
Okay. So the hospitals then, yes, they're charging you more.
I feel like I'm showing everybody how dumb I am about some things.
But no, so, I mean, because that's a real thing where hospitals, because, some people aren't able to pay,
and hey,
they have to pass costs on.
I'm not worried about paying a heroin junkie's medical bills. Yeah. That's not my position. Right. I'm just pot stirring because it's all about finding the line that everybody can kind of agree on.
And so the reason why that exists is because what's the alternative? Is the alternative that a hospital is going to turn away that person who shows up, that heroin junkie that needs care?
Is number 5 our medical system?
I mean, I was going to talk about infrastructure. It could be healthcare. It can be like
the worst.
Yeah.
It's such
and let's do mental health as well.
Oh yeah. Well, let's finish environment.
Okay. I mean,
so many rabbit trails.
Yes.
Finish environment. Back to flood insurance. Back to Michigan natural resources.
Yes. And I mean, it's one that, am I, hardcore into environmental issues? No, but when people are deciding how to vote, they need to know, what my inclinations are, where I typically stand. I mean, there's not too many contentious issues right now where there's a lot of disagreement. The problem.
You want to talk about Nestle pumping all of the water out of our ground?
I am
and selling it.
Very much opposed to the idea that somebody can just drill a well and take that natural resource, that water, and just as much of it as they want and sell it without any sort of.
Who allowed that? Do you know who allowed that?
Default. That's just the default. If you.
Because you're a property owner. Yeah. This goes to property owner rights.
Property rights.
This is like There Will Be Blood, where he drills down and takes all the oil from his neighbor. Got it. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The straw.
I drink your milkshake.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
I would be wildly in favor of just a 1 cent a gallon tax on gallons of water being pumped out for the purpose of bottling and shipping. Mm-hmm. Like, that's not much, but the amount that would generate in revenue would be huge and beneficial to the state. And it would show that, yes, we as a state do have some claim on these natural resources that private entities are otherwise going to utilize. Because going back to the economy, and I mean, this is where environment is crucial. It's all about externalities. I went to business school, and that kind of turned me into more left-leaning because I entered.
What is an externality?
So at business school, we were being taught as future business leaders to always look to do what's in the best interest of the business. And so if there's ever a situation where what's the best interest of the business versus the public, we should choose the business.
Yes.
If we can pass costs onto the public, we're supposed to be doing that. And that's an externality, is when a business passes a cost onto everybody else, right, rather than taking care of it themselves.
There are so many parallels. This is life at all costs. Protect life at all costs. Oh, you're on like completely brain dead life support, but we're going to keep trying to save you because one life is worth all of these resources. It's so fucking weird.
Yeah.
The business, the bottom line is you need to only care about the money,
yes,
the money, yes, even if you're burning your whole world down around you.
And that's capitalism. And I respect that is capitalism.
But it doesn't have to be capitalism.
It is the fundamental premise of capitalism that businesses are going to be self-interested and do what's in their best interest, even if they can harm the public in response. That is why, though, it turned me into someone who's left-leaning, is because that's the proper role for government, to step in and be that protector of the public. Yeah. Yes, regulated capitalism is the right model. You have the self-interested businesses trying to do whatever's in their interest, but you have the government acting as the defender of the people to then tell them, okay, these are things you can't do. You cannot pass this externality onto the public.
This sounds like a system of checks and balances.
Yes, it is. And so to get back to environment, the biggest one there is climate change. That is an externality being passed on to the public, that our governments are going to have to pay all these things to account for the consequences of climate change, where it's an externality because cost of carbon. If we simply required businesses and individuals to pay a carbon tax, right, that would then no longer be that we're passing the cost on to the general public. Well, it's funny how hold on, let me just organize my thoughts here. There's a word I'm looking for. We are trying to exchange real human living costs always to the tune of dollars. And that right there might be the fundamental problem with what we're building at planetary scale. Everything can't be tied to the US fucking dollar. It just can't. Right. And the sooner we get that, I think the sooner we start seeing our way out of these messes we keep making. Sorry. Yeah.
So,
yeah. Sandra?
Oh, I was just going to say that I think that mind might be shifting post-COVID. People are using all of their vacation days, which is a huge, shift. Like shift just in the mindset. And over and above that, I did, somebody was talking about this planned, this infrastructure plan for helping the environment, and the whole generation, like my kids, right? And Rachel, kids your age, 20 somethings, they're like, it's like you're trying to fund a fucking kindergarten classroom. You have to do a scale much, much larger to stop, or, to even stop or slow it down. This whole like pay for your carbon, that's a step, but that cannot be the answer, right? Because you can't put a money on it. It's worth more than that.
You lost me with fund a kindergarten classroom, and I really want to understand that. Did you get it?
I didn't get that reference, but I understood the larger point.
Oh, just like the amount that they're trying to help fix the problem with. It's more of a kick the can. Like the money you're doing is so minuscule.
Oh, because it's money. You can't solve this problem with money.
Exactly. That's what I was saying, is it's so minuscule.
Gotcha.
What I often hear is people say, that money's not the solution. And that is often the case, that money alone is not the solution.
But a tool.
Well, and quite often the real solutions do require money.
Of course.
So money alone, just throwing money at something, isn't going to solve it. But if you can identify things that would be, steps in the right direction, potential solutions, and money is required, then money is part of the solution. When it comes to something like a carbon tax, which we can't really do at the local level, it's got to be federal pretty much.
Maybe we can slip it in a bill with an abortion position.
States' rights!
We go to the same place so often. I love it.
But yeah, I don't know if you want to move on at all.
Well, so what's number 5?
I mean, we could do, healthcare, mental health, or we could do.
It's your top 5.
Let's do mental health and
mental
healthcare.
Health.
Yeah.
Not just health, but specifically mental health.
Well, yeah, because I mean, that's one that, whenever there's a shooting or some tragedy, people, often just, talk about mental health, but they don't actually put forward any sort of.
I think we don't know how.
Right?
We can't deal with our own mental health, so we can't figure out how to help.
I hear people pay lip service to it. I don't often see, and I don't have that many great ideas of my own for it. I just think if we are going to use that as a way to respond to tragedies, let's actually have that conversation. Try to come up. I mean, I've come up with random ideas that may not be smart ideas, but at least it's something because I want to get the ball rolling.
What ideas?
Okay. For instance, right now with, after the Affordable Care Act or Obamacare came into play, with it, certain things have to be covered by your health insurance. So if you have health insurance, you automatically, can go get an annual checkup, with no extra charge. Your health insurance is automatically going to cover annual checkups. We could, if we wanted, require that health insurance also automatically covers monthly mental health checkups. So, if you have a therapist or a life coach or somebody in that field that is, designed to help you with your mental health, you could just go to them once a month at no additional cost. Now, because that's a barrier. Most people, myself included, it's like, okay, do I really want to go meet with somebody? What is the cost? Do I have that extra money? If instead I've already paid for it with my health insurance, then okay, I'm much more likely. What it also does is it drastically increases demand and stability of demand. So that way, then on the supply side, you would see a lot of incentives for individuals who are going to college or whatever to enter that field. Because right now, if you're a mental health provider,
it would also mitigate the stigma.
Yeah.
Because now everybody
absolutely.
can go.
Yes. It does a lot to increase demand. And I think the supply side would respond accordingly, that you would then see mental health professionals, enter the field and find a stable, consistent business model for them that would be a very attractive option to rebuild the middle class. That's a whole industry of middle class professionals that would be great for our economy. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, that's just one idea. Mm-hmm. Another idea is, okay, I had a conversation with a family member who lived for a little bit over in Newtown, Connecticut, and her son, after the shooting, the school system automatically enrolled everybody at that age, into these counseling sessions once a week. They went. They all thought it was totally normal to meet with a mental health provider, mm-hmm. just like you have phys ed with gym class. You could have, mental education, mental health.
Normalize talking about your emotional state and working through problems instead of pretending they're not there.
Yes. And so here, all these years later, she was saying how emotionally mature and well-balanced he is and how much he benefited from the schools doing that. And so why can't our schools have that be if not required, at least an option where every student, just normalize it, make it a normal thing to go talk to people about your mental health.
It might be more important than woodworking.
Yeah.
Dare I say. Mm-hmm. I mean,
it's super true.
It's more applicable to everybody anyway.
Well, there's some life skills and self-regulation that come out of that. And as you're talking, I'm thinking of a specific instance where my whole family went through counseling because we had a thing happened. And my son benefited tremendously, though we were there to deal as a family with this one bad thing. Mm-hmm. He blossomed into an emotionally, and for his age, right? He was a teenager, so he's got all these teenage hormones and all this stuff. And I just watched him get comfortable in his skin about so much because he had somebody to talk to.
Yeah.
And I don't even think they talked about the thing.
Yeah. They are professionals. They mm-hmm. provide a value, and it's a value that our society needs to acquire more mm-hmm. of, clearly. And so, I mean, that's, it's one that is paid lip service. I don't know the feasibility because I'm coming up with these whole cloth.
No, but to your point, you're at least throwing out solution ideas, and we got to start somewhere.
Right.
Sometimes you just got to start doing something, even if it looks dumb, so that you can find your way to the solution.
And I think it's one that when it is something new, it doesn't already have the left versus right tarnishing that's attached to it. And so that's why, with my campaign, I am hopeful that some people will see my candidacy, and even if they disagree with me on economic stuff or whatever, they'll recognize that my approach and some of the things I'm putting forward is still the better option. It will get us onto a better path. And so they may even be willing to vote for me, even if they typically vote for Republicans. Like that is, something that I'm hopeful will occur with some. But
I do think the ballot should not have Republican or Democrat or
absolutely.
Libertarian or fucking anything listed. I think you should have to League of Women Voters read the answers to their questions. That's it.
Yeah. Yes, I would 100%. And also the ranked choice voting. Like there's a lot of voting reforms I would wildly support. But that's one where the ladder has definitely been kicked out, that those, who benefit from the status quo are the ones least likely to change it, but are also the only ones who could for the most part.
Yeah.
So.
All right. Parting words. No, this was good. Like each one of these topics could be, do you need a mental health professional?
You know what? Maybe I might.
So, since we're on the topic,
depressing.
I'm in the market. That's a hard thing to find a good therapist. And there are clear moments in my life where I have found a good therapist to get through and over the hump or past a thing that I was, trying to process. Yeah. And then I didn't need them anymore. And it was fine. Mm-hmm. And I'm like right now needing somebody, and my person is not available anymore. So
can I put a plug in for Lisa Regato?
Yes.
She's a life coach more than I don't know if she's licensed as anything, but in my office, my broker, and this is part of the reason that helped me come up with my idea. My broker
don't say that
paid for 12 sessions with Lisa Regato for everybody in the office, throughout the year, if you want to meet with her. And I've taken him up on it. I've met with her a couple times, and it's been so worthwhile that I never would have done it had I had to pay for it myself.
Really?
Just that it was automatically included. It was the greatest.
Whose idea was this?
I don't know if it was Joe's or if
Good job, Joe.
Yeah, no.
I swear to
God,
he's so
Joe.
I know. And I'm really like, so you need to know that I told Joe I'm recruiting his ass, which is like, hey, where's Everest? Okay, here we go. So that's like our running joke, but that really, the more I learn about that guy, the more impressed I am.
Yeah. I know so many people in the office that have benefited from it. And for most of us, it's the first Lisa. Mental health concept, that I've ever stepped into before. I've never met with somebody to have conversations, and it's lovely. It feels nice.
It does, right?
Yeah. You go to the gym. Why not why not just make that so normal?
Well,
our whole society would be better off if it was.
Well, what I find, I learned this interesting piece of language that really helped me separate something. And I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was something along the lines of, in my intimate relationship, my partner's Mark, I was putting a lot of friend stressors over there because I wasn't making time in my life to do friend things. And so it was really like blurring the lines or fucking up the like intimate relationship part of and I don't mean like the sex. I just mean like, we're life partners. So like friend shit too much was tipping the scales in a weird way. I feel like without a place to have therapy, those therapy things end up in inappropriate places in your life. Is that making sense?
Yes.
Cassandra, in like so many of our conversations, is my therapy. There are some things that I can't therapy with her. You know which things? The parts where she's annoying me. I love you. I'm just using an example.
Looks like a time is up today. I've got to go cry myself to sleep.
As a concluding remark, let me say though, we discussed a couple different areas of conversation. My view though is all of those very important. Not one of them is going to be adequately addressed as long as our politics remain in this dark place that we can't even engage with each other.
Yes.
That you have, elected officials referring to their colleagues as groomers and all the atrocious things that go on that just divide. We can't actually solve anything if that is the political world in which we live.
Yes.
I want to offer that path that at least, even if you don't agree with me on some things, I'm going to do my part to get us out of the darkness. So thank you for having me on.
Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, this is really good. And I feel like we could do 5 separate topic conversations. They all are big enough to take more bandwidth than we've given them.
And hey, if you're friends with Lana, if she wanted to come on, you're the moderator.
I'm going to have to go sharpen my gotcha journalism skills.
But hey, you could be the one to, facilitate that back and forth, that comparison side by side for the voters.
Point, counterpoint.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'll consider it.
Those cameras in there.
Yeah, no kidding. So when is the election?
So primary is next Tuesday, but this is going to come out after that.
Yep.
So November 2nd, I believe.
And who are you running? You are running for the primary against nobody.
Yeah.
So you will be on
Way
the
to win.
ballot.
Congratulations.
And so it's either Lana or Mike Detmer. I'm not sure who's going to come out of that. I suspect it's going to be Lana, but
she's the incumbent for that seat.
And she has spent $400,000
and she's a good fucking gerrymanderer, according to that YouTube video.
Did you watch it?
I started to.
Good.
Then I stopped because we're talking, but I see when he's
you'll
talking.
notice
I'll text it to you.
I had hair back then. You'll notice it was different.
If it turns out to be not being overstepping, we'll put that link in the comments since we did reference it in the episode. I'm not looking to throw Lana or anybody under the bus, but if it's out there and somebody cares, okay.
All right.
Freaking A. Well, good luck. If I don't see you before then, thank you so much for coming. This is awesome.
I've had a ton of fun. Thank you so much to both of you.
Yay.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
The info given is current as of this recording, but remember, the market changes and real estate is hyper local.